Victoria Frost tore the check into 4 precise pieces and threw them directly at Marcus Blake's face. The fragments scattered across the polished concrete floor of Hangar 7 like confetti at a funeral. Her voice cut through the industrial hum of the facility with surgical precision. "Get this man off my property, now!" $90 million worth of Gulfstream G700 sat dead on the runway behind her, utterly lifeless, despite the frantic efforts of 15 highly credentialed engineers who had spent the last 8 hours failing to resurrect it. The aircraft's elegant white fuselage gleamed under the hangar lights, mocking everyone who had tried and failed to make it fly. 14 hours remained until the most important meeting of Victoria Frost's life. 14 hours to fly across the continent to San Francisco, where the future of Frost Dynamics hung in the balance of a $4.8 billion acquisition that would either cement her legacy or destroy everything she had built over 2 decades of ruthless ambition. And the only person who could save her was a 35-year-old mechanic from Newark in worn work boots and a jacket held together by pride and stubbornness, whom she had just publicly humiliated in front of her entire team. But Victoria Frost did not know what everyone else in that hangar would learn within the hour. Marcus Blake was not some lucky amateur who stumbled into aircraft repair. He was the man who had once brought a crashed F-22 Raptor back to life in the Afghan desert with nothing but a multi-tool A prayer and the kind of mechanical intuition that no MIT degree could teach. He was about to give the billionaire CEO the most expensive education of her life. 8 hours earlier, Marcus Blake had been standing in a small kitchen in Newark, making his daughter's lunch, with the methodical care of a man who understood that the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight. Turkey sandwich crusts removed because Lily had decided at age 6 that bread edges tasted like disappointment. Apple slices arranged in a fan pattern because presentation mattered even when no one was watching. A juice box tucked in the corner of the lunchbox, and most importantly, a folded note placed exactly where she would find it at noon. Note number 632. He had written one for every school day since Caroline walked out 3 years ago without explanation, without goodbye, without looking back at the 5-year-old daughter she left behind. Marcus unfolded the small square of paper one more time before placing it in the lunchbox, reading the words he had written in the quiet darkness of 5:30 that morning. "You are braver than you believe. Love, Dad." Simple words, insufficient words, but they were all he had to offer against the abandonment that still shadowed his daughter's eyes whenever she asked questions about her mother that Marcus could not answer. The photograph taped to the refrigerator caught the early morning light as he closed the lunchbox. Carolyn's face smiled out from the frame, frozen in a moment, 3 years gone, her arm around Marcus. Both of them laughing at some joke he could no longer remember. He had stopped removing the picture because Lily needed to know what her mother looked like, even if she could not understand why that face had vanished from their lives. His phone rang at 6:47. The screen identified Ryan Torres before Marcus answered, and he felt his stomach drop. Ryan only called this early when something had gone catastrophically wrong. Marcus picked up on the 4th ring, wiping flour from his hands onto a dish towel. "Ryan, it's barely 7. Someone better be dying." The pause on the other end lasted a heartbeat too long. Then Ryan's voice came through, rough with exhaustion and something close to desperation. "Brother, I need you." Marcus stopped moving. Ryan Torres had saved his life twice, and Kandahar had pulled him from a burning helicopter while insurgents fired on their position, had never once asked for help without damn good reason. Whatever had put that edge in his voice was serious. "What's wrong?" Ryan exhaled a sound that carried 6 states' worth of distance between them. "You know that Gulfstream I told you about, the G700 belonging to Victoria Frost?" Marcus remembered. Ryan worked private aviation now, after leaving the Air Force, maintaining aircraft for people who measured wealth in billions at Teterboro Airport. He had mentioned the tech CEO's plane in passing, had described the woman as someone who owned half of Silicon Valley's artificial intelligence infrastructure and all of its accompanying arrogance. "The one worth more than I'll make in 3 lifetimes. Yeah, I remember." Another pause. Marcus heard voices in the background, sharp and angry, the kind of controlled chaos that preceded very bad news. "It's been dead for 8 hours. Won't start, won't respond, just sits there like something's holding it down. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been working on aircraft for 15 years. Marcus poured himself coffee with his free hand. The pot had been sitting since 5, the liquid gone bitter and cold, but he drank it anyway. You've got a maintenance team, Ryan. She's got money to fly in whoever she wants. Why are you calling me? Because I already flew in whoever she wants. Ryan's voice cracked slightly, fatigue bleeding through the words. 3 engineers from MIT, 2 from Boeing, one guy who literally designed the G700's avionics system. None of them can figure it out. The diagnostics show nothing wrong. Everything checks out perfect on paper. But the bird won't fly. Marcus took another sip of terrible coffee, and she's losing her mind. She's already fired 2 people this morning. She's talking lawsuits against Boeing, against Gulfstream, against God himself, if she could figure out how to serve papers. The whole hangar is a war zone, Marcus. I've never seen anything like it. Marcus looked at the clock on the microwave. 6:52. Lily's bus came at 7:45, which meant Mrs. Patterson next door could watch her for the day if he asked nicely and brought her those oatmeal cookies she liked. But today was Saturday and he had promised Lily the park. Ryan, I can't just drop everything and... I told her I knew someone. Ryan cut him off, desperation sharpening his voice. Someone who could fix anything. Someone who never gave up on a machine in his life. I told her about you bringing that helicopter back from the dead in that sandstorm outside Kandahar. Marcus closed his eyes. You shouldn't have done that. I know, but I did. And now I'm asking you as a friend, as a brother who served with you, who watched you perform miracles with broken equipment and sheer stubborn will. Please, Marcus, just come look at it. 1 hour. If you can't fix it, you walk away. That's all I'm asking. Footsteps on the stairs announced Lily waking up. Marcus heard her small feet padding across the floor above him, heading toward the bathroom. His daughter who deserved a Saturday at the park with her father. His daughter who deserved tuition payments for the private school that actually challenged her brilliant mind. His daughter whose braces would need adjusting next month at a cost Marcus had been trying not to calculate. What's she paying? Ryan's relief came through the phone like a physical thing. She hasn't said, but Marcus, this woman is worth $11 billion. Billion with a B, she'll pay whatever you ask. Marcus thought about the transmission in his 2009 Honda Civic that had been making an ominous grinding sound for 3 weeks, the kind of noise that mechanics recognize as expensive failure waiting to happen. He thought about the bills stacked on his kitchen counter, sorted by urgency rather than due date. He thought about Caroline's last words before she left, her voice cold and final in the pre-dawn darkness of their bedroom. This isn't enough. You aren't enough. I'll be there in 2 hours. Ryan's gratitude flooded through the phone. Thank you, brother. I owe you. Marcus hung up as Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing purple pajamas covered in small stars, her hair a magnificent disaster of sleep-tangled brown waves that stuck up in 6 different directions. She had her mother's eyes, that same deep brown that could see through pretense and straight into truth, and her father's stubborn chin that got them both into more trouble than they could handle. Who was that daddy? Marcus knelt to her level the way his grandmother Grace had taught him. Children deserved eye contact. Children deserved respect. Children deserved the truth even when the truth disappointed them. That was Uncle Ryan, baby girl. He needs daddy's help with something at work. Lily's face fell with the particular devastation of an 8-year-old whose Saturday plans were crumbling. She was not a dramatic child, but the disappointment settled across her features with painful clarity. But today's Saturday. The words came out small and careful, a statement rather than an accusation. You promised we'd go to the park. The guilt hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had promised. He had looked his daughter in the eyes last night and promised her swings and slides and maybe ice cream, if she was good, and now he was breaking that promise for money he desperately needed, but could not explain to an 8-year-old who only understood that daddy was leaving again. I know, sweetheart, I know I promised and I'm sorry, but sometimes grown-ups have to help their friends when they're in trouble, even when we don't want to, even when we've made other plans. He reached out and smoothed down her wild hair, feeling the silky texture under his rough mechanic's hands. You understand that, right? Lily's lower lip trembled just slightly. She was trying to be brave, trying to be the strong girl he always told her. She was trying not to cry, even though he could see the tears gathering behind her eyes. Will you be home for dinner? The question broke something in Marcus's chest. I will do everything in my power to be home for dinner. And if I'm late, I'll bring you ice cream. A small smile cracked through the disappointment fragile as spring ice. Chocolate. Is there any other kind? She giggled and the sound loosened the knot that had formed under Marcus's ribs. Deal. He kissed her forehead, held her for an extra second, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo and the particular sweetness that belonged only to his daughter. Then he stood and reached for his phone to call Mrs. Patterson, who answered on the second ring with the patience of a woman who had raised 6 children and understood emergencies. Marcus, honey, everything okay? Emergency job, Mrs. P. Any chance you could watch Lily today? Of course, baby. Send her over whenever you're ready. I just made pancakes. 20 minutes later, Marcus was heading north on the Garden State Parkway in his boing Honda Civic, the transmission grinding in third gear like metal teeth chewing through his bank account. He ignored it the way he ignored most problems he could not immediately solve, focusing instead on the road ahead and the strange situation Ryan had described. A $90 million aircraft that would not start. Engineers from MIT and Boeing who could not diagnose the problem. A billionaire CEO with a critical meeting across the continent and no way to get there. Marcus thought about his grandmother Grace, who had raised him in a small house in Baltimore after his parents died in a car crash when he was 7. She had worked as a seamstress until she was 82, making wedding dresses with hands gnarled by arthritis, every stitch an act of love and determination. She had taught him everything that mattered. Her voice echoed in his memory, clear as the morning she had spoken the words while showing him how to thread a needle with fingers that barely cooperated anymore. There are 2 kinds of people in this world, Marcus. Wall builders and bridge builders. The wall builders think they're safe behind their fortifications, but they end up trapped inside their own fortress, alone and afraid. The bridge builders are scared too, baby. But they build anyway because they know the only way through fear is connection. Marcus gripped the steering wheel and wondered which kind of person he was about to meet. The security guard at Teterborough's private terminal looked at Marcus's Honda Civic the way a maitre d' might regard a cockroach crawling across a 5-star restaurant floor. The vehicle sat in the entrance lane like an embarrassment made visible, its faded blue paint and multiple dents declaring poverty among the gleaming black luxury sedans that ferried the wealthy to their waiting jets. The guard approached slowly, clipboard in hand, suspicion carved into every line of his face. He was young, maybe 25, with the kind of haircut that suggested recent military service, in the posture of someone who took his authority very seriously. Can I help you? Marcus killed the engine, which gave one final grinding protest before falling silent. Marcus Blake, I'm here to see Ryan Torres about the Frost aircraft. The guard checked his clipboard, then checked it again as if the name might change upon second reading. His eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. You're the specialist. That's what they tell me. The guard made a call, spoke quietly into his radio, glanced at Marcus's car again with obvious disbelief that someone driving this particular vehicle could be anyone's solution to anything. Then he handed over a visitor's badge with the careful neutrality of a man trying not to make judgments he was definitely making. Hangar 7, follow the signs. Marcus drove through the gates into a world that operated on a different frequency than his own life. Private jets lined the taxiways like toys for giants, each one representing more wealth than everyone Marcus knew would earn in their combined lifetimes. Gulfstreams, Bombardiers, Cessna Citations, their polished fuselages gleaming in the late morning sun. He did not resent it. His grandmother had taught him that jealousy was poison that only hurt the person drinking it, but he did not understand it either. What did a person do with $11 billion? What did they dream about when they could buy anything? Who did they become when they had never been told no? Hangar 7 was the largest structure on the property. Its massive doors opened to reveal blazing industrial lights in the chaos of desperate experts failing at the one thing they were supposed to know how to do. Inside sat the most beautiful aircraft Marcus Blake had ever seen. The Gulfstream G700 represented the pinnacle of private aviation engineering. $90 million of aerospace technology capable of crossing oceans like a bird hopping between trees, with a range of 7,500 nautical miles and a top speed that could break the sound barrier if pushed hard enough. Its white fuselage curved with predatory grace, elegant and powerful, and completely, utterly dead. Marcus parked his Civic between a Bentley and a Tesla Model S. The contrast would have been funny if the situation were not so serious. He grabbed his toolbox from the back seat, the battered metal case held together with duct tape and memories dented and scratched from 15 years of honest work. His grandmother had given him this toolbox when he was 16, presenting it with the solemnity of a knight receiving his sword. Tools are an extension of your hands, baby boy, and your hands are an extension of your heart. Take care of them, and they'll take care of you. Marcus walked toward the hangar, and the tension hit him before he crossed the threshold. It hung in the air like humidity before a thunderstorm, heavy and electric and dangerous. 15 people clustered in anxious groups, all of them radiating stress in different frequencies. Men in expensive suits shouted into phones. Engineers hunched over laptops, scrolling through diagnostic data with increasingly desperate expressions. Mechanics stood around looking helpless, their considerable skills useless against a problem none of them could identify. And in the center of it all, like a general holding court in a burning castle, stood Victoria Frost. Marcus had seen her picture before in Forbes and Bloomberg, in 100 tech articles celebrating her rise from Appalachian poverty to Silicon Valley royalty. But photographs could not capture the intensity of her physical presence. She was small, maybe 5'3", and the heels she wore like weapons, but she commanded that hangar like she stood 7 feet tall. Black hair pulled back severely from her face. Ice blue eyes that could cut through steel. A designer suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. Right now, those eyes were locked onto a middle-aged man wearing a Boeing polo shirt, and the man was sweating through the fabric despite the cool air circulating through the hangar. Victoria's voice was like ice cracking under pressure, cold and sharp and lethal. 8 hours. 8 hours, and you're telling me you still don't know what's wrong. The Boeing engineer, his badge identified him as William Crawford, held up his hands defensively. Ms. Frost, the diagnostic systems are showing no errors. The engines are structurally sound. The avionics are functioning perfectly. On paper, this aircraft should start. But it doesn't start. Victoria stepped closer to him, and Crawford actually flinched. Does it? No, ma'am. So either the paper is lying or you are. Crawford's face went red. Miss Frost, I helped design this aircraft. I'm telling you there is no mechanical reason. Then find a non-mechanical reason. Victoria's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Find a spiritual reason. Find a reason involving aliens from Jupiter. I don't care what you find. I need to be in San Francisco in 14 hours, and I am not rescheduling this meeting because you and your team of so-called experts can't do your jobs. That was when Ryan appeared at Marcus's side, looking like he had aged 5 years in the last 8 hours. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his uniform showed wrinkles that spoke of a long night without sleep. You made it. Relief flooded Ryan's voice. Thank God. Marcus kept his eyes on the confrontation unfolding 30 feet away. Ryan, what exactly did you get me into? I know, brother. I'm sorry, but she's right. Nobody can figure it out. I've never seen anything like it. Victoria suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her head turning as if some predatory instinct had sensed new prey entering her territory. Her eyes swept across the hangar like searchlights and landed directly on Marcus Blake. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The entire hangar seemed to freeze. Then Victoria started walking toward him, and Marcus Blake understood what it meant to face down a force of nature wearing Italian leather shoes. He had faced insurgents in Afghanistan. He had landed a crippled helicopter in a sandstorm with zero visibility and one functioning engine. He had been shot at, blown up, and left for dead in a ditch outside Kandahar. None of that had prepared him for the full weight of Victoria Frost's attention, focused entirely on him. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive that reminded him of money in winter. Who are you? Marcus met her eyes and did not look away. Marcus Blake, ma'am. I'm here to look at your aircraft. Victoria's gaze moved slowly down his body, taking inventory with the precision of an auditor examining accounts she suspected of fraud. The worn Carhartt jacket faded from years of use. The steel-toed boots scuffed, impractical. The toolbox wrapped in duct tape. Her lip curled slightly, a tiny movement that spoke volumes about what she thought she was seeing. You're here to look at my aircraft. Yes, ma'am. And who exactly sent you? Ryan stepped forward, trying to project confidence he clearly did not feel. I did, Miss Frost. Marcus is the best aviation mechanic I've ever worked with. We served together in the Air Force. He can fix anything. I've seen him do things that the Air Force. Victoria's voice dripped with contempt she did not bother to hide. So he worked on military aircraft, fighters, cargo planes, things that were built in the 1980s and held together with prayer and government contracts. Marcus kept his voice quiet and level. I've worked on everything, ma'am. Fighters, cargo helicopters, and yes, private jets. I'm certified on Gulfstream Bombardier and Cessna. Certified? Victoria laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Everyone in this hangar is certified, Mr. Blake. I have PhDs standing right here. Patents, publications, 30 years of combined experience, and none of them can start my airplane. She stepped closer into his personal space, testing him the way predators test prey for weakness. So tell me what makes you think you can do what they can't. Marcus held her gaze without flinching. Something his grandmother had taught him echoed through the moment: never let anyone make you smaller than you are. I don't know that I can, ma'am, but I'd like to try. Victoria stared at him for a long moment, and something flickered in her eyes. Not respect, not yet, but perhaps recognition that this man refused to shrink under pressure that had broken stronger people. How touching. A sentimental mechanic. She turned to her assistant, a nervous young man clutching a tablet like a life preserver. David, what's our status with the charter backup? David consulted his screen with trembling fingers. Still working on it, Miss Frost. Every G700 and G650 in the Northeast is either booked or undergoing maintenance. The earliest we could get anything comparable is, I don't want to hear earliest, I want to hear now. I understand, but stop. Victoria held up her hand and David went silent immediately. She turned back to Marcus. You want to try? Fine. Try. She stepped aside, gesturing toward the aircraft with an exaggerated sweep of her arm. But let me be very clear about something, Mr. Blake. Her voice dropped lower, intimate and deadly. I have a meeting in San Francisco tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. A meeting that has taken me 3 years to arrange. A meeting that will determine whether my company survives or gets absorbed by my competitors. Marcus said nothing. I have engineers from MIT standing over there. Victoria pointed without looking. Boeing engineers. Men who literally built this aircraft. And you. She looked at his jacket, his boots, his car, visible through the hangar door. You showed up in a Honda Civic with a toolbox wrapped in tape. Marcus felt every eye in the hangar on him, measuring him, doubting him, certain he would fail. So here's the deal, Mr. Blake. Victoria's eyes locked onto his with laser focus. If you somehow manage to fix what they couldn't by some miracle of volley or luck or whatever you want to call it, I'll write you a check for $100,000. Right here, right now. A murmur rippled through the hangar. People had stopped pretending not to listen. But when you fail, and you will fail, I want you to apologize. Marcus frowned. Apologize? Not to me. She pointed at her engineering team at Crawford, at the MIT kid, at all of them. To them, for wasting everyone's time with this circus. Marcus felt the weight of their doubt pressing down on him like physical force. He thought about Lily at Mrs. Patterson's house, about the park they were supposed to visit, about note number 632 sitting in her lunchbox. You are braver than you believe. Ma'am, I don't need $100,000. Victoria blinked clearly, not expecting that response. Excuse me. And I'm not going to apologize to anyone for trying to help. Marcus shifted his toolbox to his other hand. If I fail, I fail. I've failed before. I'll fail again. That's how learning works. That's how getting better works. And I won't apologize for making the attempt. The hangar went silent. What I will do is look at your aircraft with fresh eyes and honest hands. That's what I came here to do. That's what my friend asked me to do. He met Victoria's gaze one more time. Now may I get started? We're wasting time. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, then 10. Victoria Frost stared at Marcus Blake like she was seeing something she did not recognize, something that did not fit into any category. She understood a puzzle that refused to be solved by money or power or intimidation. Then her face hardened. Fine, get started. She turned to Ryan. Mr. Torres, you'll supervise. If he touches anything, he's not supposed to have him removed. Ryan nodded. Yes, ma'am. Victoria walked away, already pulling out her phone, already shouting at someone about alternative arrangements, her heels clicking against the concrete floor like a countdown clock measuring failure. Ryan exhaled slowly. Brother, you've got bigger balls than I remembered. Marcus picked up his toolbox. Just get me access to the cockpit. They walked toward the aircraft, toward $90 million worth of engineering that had defeated every expert thrown at it. As they approached, Marcus noticed a young woman standing apart from the others. Early 20s, maybe wearing a maintenance uniform. She was watching him with an expression he could not quite read, something between hope and skepticism. Who's that? Ryan followed his gaze. Sarah Mitchell, junior technician, been with Frost Aviation about 6 months. Smart kid, good instincts, but nobody listens to her because she doesn't have enough letters after her name. Marcus made a mental note. Then he climbed the stairs into the aircraft and went to work. The cabin interior demonstrated wealth beyond Marcus's comprehension. Hand-stitched Italian leather seats that probably cost more than his annual income. Mahogany panels polished to mirror shine. A bedroom suite in the back with sheets that felt like water under his rough fingers. A full bar stocked with bottles whose labels he could not pronounce and whose prices he did not want to know. Marcus ignored all of it. He moved straight to the cockpit and sat in the captain's seat, feeling the controls cold and unresponsive under his hands. Ryan handed him a tablet displaying diagnostic readouts from the last 8 hours. Every test they had run, every system they had checked, every parameter they had measured. Marcus scrolled through the data, absorbing information with the focused intensity that had kept him alive through 3 combat deployments. Engine temperatures, normal. Fuel pressure, normal. Electrical systems, normal. Avionics, normal. Navigation, normal. Hydraulics, normal. Every single metric fell within acceptable parameters. They're right, Marcus muttered. Ryan frowned. Right about what? On paper, this plane should start. So what are they missing? Marcus did not answer. He set down the tablet and closed his eyes, letting the world fall away until nothing existed except him and the machine. His hands rested on the flight controls, feeling for something he could not name, but would recognize when he found it. This was something he had learned from Master Sergeant Willie Benson, a 70-year-old black man with 3 wars and 50 years of aircraft maintenance under his belt. Willie could diagnose an engine problem just by listening to it. Idle could feel a vibration that did not belong from 200 feet away, could tell you what was wrong with a bird before he even looked under the hood. Machines talk, son. Willie's voice echoed through Marcus's memory, as clear as if the old man stood beside him now. They're always talking, always telling you what's wrong, what they need, what's hurting them. Most people are too busy running their mouths to hear. But if you get quiet enough, if you listen hard enough, the machine will tell you everything. Marcus listened. At first there was nothing. Just the distant sound of activity in the hangar. People talking, phones ringing, the hum of emergency lighting, the faint whisper of air circulation through the cabin. Then something else. A feeling more than a sound. A pressure in his chest, like the aircraft was holding its breath, like it wanted to fly but could not. Like something was blocking it, restraining it, keeping it earthbound against its nature. Marcus opened his eyes. I need to see the engine compartment. Ryan's frown deepened. Marcus, they've checked the engines 6 different ways. Boeing sent their best people. I need to see the engine compartment. The guy who designed this aircraft says the engines are perfect. Ryan. Marcus turned and looked at his friend with the kind of intensity that had once made insurgents reconsider their life choices. I need to see the engine compartment. Something in his voice made Ryan stop arguing. Okay, brother, let's go. 20 minutes later, Marcus was lying on his back beneath the aircraft's left engine flashlight, clenched in his teeth, hands tracing fuel lines with the delicate precision of a surgeon exploring arteries. 3 MIT engineers stood nearby, watching with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The Boeing engineer Crawford had refused to participate at all. He stood 50 feet away with his arms crossed, loudly calling the whole thing a waste of time to anyone who would listen. Victoria Frost paced 30 feet away, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp as she explored alternative arrangements that did not exist and options that had already been exhausted. Marcus blocked it all out. He moved methodically through the engine compartment, checking connections, feeling for anomalies, running his fingers along every pipe and wire like a blind man reading Braille that spelled disaster or salvation. The engine was beautiful, pristine, perfectly maintained. Every component exactly where it should be, functioning exactly as designed, a masterpiece of modern engineering, worth more than most houses. But something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, in the pressure behind his sternum, in the way the metal seemed to hold tension it should not carry. And then he found it. A small valve about the size of his fist tucked behind the primary fuel delivery system. The pressure relief valve. He had seen thousands of them, knew exactly how they were supposed to sit, understood their function as intimately as he understood breathing. This one was missing its washer gasket. Not worn, not damaged, not degraded by time or stress or normal operation. Missing. Marcus pulled himself out from under the engine, his coveralls stained with grease, his back aching from the concrete floor, but his heart pounding with the certainty of discovery. He stood slowly examining the valve housing under his flashlight, seeing what nobody else had thought to look for. Tool marks on the threads. Fresh tool marks made by a wrench that was slightly the wrong size, leaving tiny scratches that told a story no diagnostic computer could read. Someone had deliberately removed the washer gasket. This was not maintenance error. This was sabotage. Sarah Mitchell appeared at his elbow, materializing from the shadows with the quiet competence of someone who had learned to make themselves invisible until needed. She handed him a wrench before he asked for it, the exact wrench he needed sized perfectly for the job. Marcus glanced at her. "You knew, didn't you?" Sarah hesitated, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I suspected. I tried to tell Mr. Morton this morning that we should check the maintenance work from 3 weeks ago. I was there when they did the service. Something felt off. But he said the diagnostics already cleared everything. Diagnostics don't know everything." Marcus felt something click into place. "No, they don't." He finished the repair, installing a new washer gasket with careful precision, checking it twice, then moving to the right engine to verify his suspicion. Same problem, same deliberate removal, same fresh tool marks telling the same ugly story. Someone wanted this aircraft grounded. Sarah Mitchell watched him work with the focused attention of a student observing a master, learning not just what he did, but why he did it. "You have good instincts," Marcus told her as he tightened the final connection. "Don't let anyone tell you they don't matter. Education tells you how a machine can break. Experience tells you how it will break." Sarah nodded, and for the first time since Marcus had entered the hangar, he saw someone smile. At exactly 10:47 in the morning, Marcus Blake climbed into the cockpit of the Gulfstream G700. He ran through the startup sequence with hands that had performed this ritual thousands of times. Systems check, fuel check, ignition protocol. His fingers moved automatically, guided by muscle memory and intimate knowledge of machinery that spoke a language most people never learn. He pressed the ignition button. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. The cockpit stayed dark. The engines stayed silent. And Marcus felt his heart stop. Then a whine, low at first, building slowly like a giant waking from sleep. The left engine began to spin, sluggish at first, then faster still, the turbine blades accelerating toward operational speed. Then the right engine caught, matching its twin, both of them building toward the steady roar of power properly harnessed. The instruments flickered to life. Screens lit up across the cockpit like Christmas lights after a long winter. Warning indicators cleared one by one, replaced by steady green lights that said everything was right with the world. Everything was as it should be. Everything was ready to fly. Marcus looked out the cockpit window at the hangar below, at the engineers who had doubted him, at the mechanics who had given up, at Ryan pumping his fist in the air like his team had just won the Super Bowl, and at Victoria Frost standing frozen in the middle of it all, her phone forgotten in her hand, her face impossible to read. Marcus shut down the engines and climbed out of the cockpit. He walked down the stairs slowly, his legs tired, his back aching from lying on concrete, adrenaline starting to fade now that the job was done. Victoria walked toward him. The crowd parted automatically to let her through. She stopped 3 feet away, the same distance as before, but everything was different now. The air between them carried a different charge, a different way. "You did it." Marcus kept his voice quiet. "The aircraft did it, ma'am. I just helped it breathe." Victoria's face worked through emotions Marcus could not name. Pride fighting with humility, anger wrestling with gratitude. The walls she had built over decades cracking under pressure she did not understand and had not expected. Then she did something no one expected. She reached into her jacket, pulled out a checkbook, and began writing. $100,000. Her pen moved across the paper with swift, decisive strokes. As promised, she tore the check free and held it out to him. Marcus looked at it. He thought about Lily, about the tuition payment due next month for the school that actually challenged her brilliant mind. He thought about the transmission in his Civic that was 3 weeks away from catastrophic failure. He thought about the bills on his kitchen counter sorted by urgency because there was not enough money to pay them all. $100,000 would change everything. Then he thought about the way Victoria had looked at him when he walked in, the contempt in her voice, the certainty that he would fail, the assumption that he was less than nothing because of how he dressed, what he drove, where he came from. He took the check from her hand. Victoria's eyes widened, slightly surprised perhaps that he had accepted so easily that money had proven sufficient. After all, that everyone had their price, and his was apparently $100,000. Then Marcus tore the check into 4 pieces and dropped them at Victoria Frost's feet. The fragments scattered across the concrete floor like the ones that had started this whole encounter, except this time the gesture belonged to him. "I didn't come here for your money, Miss Frost." Victoria's mouth fell open. For the first time all day, she was completely speechless. "I came because a friend asked for help. That's what I do. I help people, and I don't need a check to prove my worth. I know my worth. I've always known it." He picked up his toolbox and turned to walk away. "Mr. Blake." Victoria's voice stopped him, quieter now, different, stripped of the armor she wore like a second skin. He turned back. She stood amid the torn pieces of the check, looking at him like she was seeing him for the first time, like he was a puzzle she could not solve, a language she did not speak, a question she had not known to ask. "Why?" The word came out almost as a whisper. "Why tear it up? You could obviously use the money." Marcus considered the question, thinking about his grandmother Grace, about the lessons she had taught him in that small house in Baltimore, about the kind of man she had raised him to be. "Because some things are worth more than money, ma'am. Respect for one. Self-respect." He glanced at the aircraft, then back at her. "And I figure you've got enough people in your life who'll do anything for a check. Maybe what you need is someone who won't." He nodded to Ryan, shook Sarah Mitchell's hand, then walked out of the hangar into the bright morning sunlight. Behind him, the Gulfstream G700 sat humming with the potential energy, ready to fly, ready to carry Victoria Frost to the most important meeting of her life. And Victoria Frost stood motionless, watching him go, feeling something she had not felt in a very long time, something she did not have a word for yet, something that felt dangerously close to shame mixed with wonder. Marcus was halfway to his car when his phone buzzed. Unknown number, New Jersey area code. He answered on speaker, expecting a wrong number or a telemarketer. "This is Marcus." "Mr. Blake, don't hang up." Victoria Frost's voice filled his dying Honda Civic, and the desperation in it made him pull over to the side of the access road. "How did you get this number?" "I'm an $11 billion tech CEO, Mr. Blake. Getting phone numbers is not particularly challenging." Marcus waited, saying nothing, letting her fill the silence. "I want to understand." Her voice trembled slightly, the armor cracking wider. "Why you did what you did. Any of it." The question hung between them, carried across cellular networks in the vast gulf of their different worlds. "Maybe that says more about you than it does about me." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means maybe you've spent so long surrounded by people who want something from you that you've forgotten what it looks like when someone doesn't." Silence on the line. Marcus could hear her breathing, could feel her processing the words like data she could not quite compile. That's surprisingly insightful for a mechanic. That's surprisingly honest for a billionaire. Victoria laughed short and surprised, like she had not expected the sound to come out of her own mouth. "Mr. Blake." "Marcus, Marcus." She said his name like she was testing the weight of it. "I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do." Her voice cracked slightly. "The way I spoke to you in that hangar, the things I implied, the assumptions I made about who you were before you even opened your mouth. I was wrong. I was frustrated and scared, and I took it out on you because you were an easy target. That was beneath me." Marcus said nothing, waiting. "I've built my entire career on being right, on being the smartest person in the room, on trusting data over instinct, credentials over experience. And today a man with a taped-up toolbox proved that everything I believed about expertise was wrong. I didn't prove anything, Miss Frost. I just fixed a valve. You did more than that. Her voice was shaking now, actually shaking. You showed my entire team what real competence looks like. Not degrees on a wall, not patents or publications. Just showing up, listening, caring, doing the work. Marcus pulled back onto the access road, heading toward the Garden State Parkway, toward home, toward Lily. Is there a point to this call, Miss Frost? Yes. She took a breath that carried across the connection like wind before a storm. I want you to come back. Marcus actually laughed. Come back for what? The aircraft's fixed. Not to fix anything. The jet's fine. You made sure of that. A pause. I want you to fly with me to San Francisco. You and your daughter. I want to talk. Really talk. Not about engines or maintenance or any of that. Marcus felt his grip tighten on the steering wheel. I have a daughter, Miss Frost. I promised her I'd take her to the park today. Bring her. The words came out fast, desperate. I assume she's never been to San Francisco. Consider it an educational experience. You're serious. I'm always serious. Another pause. Marcus, I don't know how to ask for things I actually want, because wanting things makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability gets you hurt. Marcus thought about his grandmother, Grace, about the courage it took to reach across the distance between different lives. The plane leaves at 2. I hope you'll be there. She hung up. Marcus sat in his car at a red light, trying to process what had just happened, trying to understand what he was feeling. His phone buzzed again. Text message. Victoria Frost. I know what happened to that plane, and I know you're not going to like who's responsible. Marcus stared at the screen. The sabotage was real. Someone had deliberately grounded that aircraft, and Victoria knew something. He pulled into his driveway 15 minutes later. Mrs. Patterson met him at the door with flour on her apron and concern in her eyes. You're back early. I thought you'd be gone all day. Job finished faster than expected. Where's Lily? Living room. She's been asking about you every 10 minutes. Marcus found his daughter curled up on the couch watching some animated movie. He did not recognize her eyes fixed on the screen, but not really watching. Waiting. The moment she saw him, her face lit up like sunrise. Daddy. She launched herself off the couch and into his arms. Marcus caught her, lifted her up, breathed in the smell of Mrs. Patterson's pancakes in her hair and the particular sweetness that belonged only to his daughter. Hey, baby girl. You're home. Does this mean we can go to the park? Marcus set her down and knelt to her level eye, to eye the way his grandmother had taught him. About that, I need to ask you something important. Lily's face fell with the practiced disappointment of a child who had learned to expect broken promises. You have to work again. Not exactly. Marcus took her hand, small and soft and trusting. A lady I helped today asked me to fly to San Francisco with her on an airplane, and she said you could come too. Lily's eyes went wide, wider than he had ever seen them. San Francisco, like in California. That's the one, with the Golden Gate Bridge and cable cars and, oh my gosh. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper, the way children whisper when something is too wonderful to say out loud. Oh my gosh, Daddy, can we? Please, 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 please. Marcus smiled despite the weight of everything happening. You'd rather go to San Francisco than the park. Daddy, it's San Francisco. She grabbed his hands and squeezed, with the bridge and the sea lions, and she stopped suddenly, her face going serious. Wait, is this a trick? Are you tricking me? No trick, baby, but it's a long flight, and we'd have to leave soon, like in 2 hours. 2 hours? Lily was already running toward her bedroom. I have to pack. What do I bring? Do they have different clothes in California? What if... Lily, Marcus caught her arm gently. Slow down. We need to talk about this first. He led her back to the couch and sat her down. This lady I helped today, her name is Victoria. She's very rich and very important, and she wasn't very nice to me when I first got there. Lily frowned. Why not? Because she looked at me and made assumptions about who I was, about what I could do. She judged me before she knew me. That's not nice. It isn't, but then I fixed her airplane and I think she's starting to see things differently. She called me and apologized, and she wants to understand why I do things the way I do. Lily thought about this with serious concentration. Marcus could see the wheels turning behind her eyes, processing information, making connections. So she was mean, but now she's sorry. That's right. When she wants to learn how to be nicer. Marcus smiled at his daughter's understanding. Something like that. Then we should help her, Daddy. You always say when someone wants to be better, you help them, even when it's hard. Marcus stared at his daughter, 8 years old and wiser than half the adults he had ever met. When did you get so smart? I learned from you. Lily grinned, then jumped off the couch. Now, can I please go pack? Marcus kissed her forehead. Go pack, but only one suitcase. And bring a jacket. It's cold in San Francisco. Lily sprinted to her room, already listing things she needed to bring at the top of her lungs, her voice bright with excitement that washed away the disappointment of the morning. Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a text to the number that had called him. We'll be there at 2, but I'm still driving myself. The response came 30 seconds later. I wouldn't expect anything less. See you soon, Marcus. They arrived at Teterboro at 1:47 in the afternoon. Lily pressed her face against the car window as they approached the hangar, her breath fogging the glass. Daddy, that plane is giant. That's because it's a Gulfstream G700, baby. One of the biggest private jets in the world. Is this what you fixed today? It is. You fixed that? Lily looked at him with something approaching awe. Daddy, you're like a superhero. I'm just a mechanic, sweetheart. Superheroes always say stuff like that. Marcus parked the Civic in the same spot as before between the Bentley and the Tesla. The contrast was still absurd, but this time he did not care. He helped Lily out of the car, grabbed their bags from the trunk, and walked toward the hangar. Victoria Frost appeared at the top of the aircraft stairs, and Marcus barely recognized her. She had changed since that morning. Jeans instead of the severe suit, a cashmere sweater instead of armor, hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back tight. She looked almost human. She walked down the stairs and stopped in front of them, and for a moment nobody spoke. Then Lily broke the silence with the directness that only children possess. Are you the mean lady who said sorry to my daddy? Victoria blinked, clearly not expecting that question. Then she did something Marcus had not seen her do in the hangar. She knelt down to Lily's level eye-to-eye, matching the respect his daughter deserved. Yes, Victoria said it quietly. I am. I made a mistake. A big one. My teacher says we should never judge people by how they look. That's mean. Your teacher's absolutely right. I was mean, and I'm very sorry. Lily studied Victoria's face with the careful scrutiny of a child trying to decide if an adult deserves trust. Are you going to be mean again? I'm going to try very hard not to be. Lily considered this, then nodded with the solemnity of a judge passing sentence. Okay, but Daddy says sorry is just words. You have to show it with actions. Victoria stood slowly looking at Marcus with an expression somewhere between shock and wonder. She's remarkable. Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that came whenever someone pointed out how special his daughter was. She's her mother's daughter. The words came out before he could stop them, carrying more weight and pain than he had intended. Victoria noticed her blue eyes sharpening, but she did not push. Shall we board? We have a schedule to keep. They climbed the stairs into the aircraft. Lily gasped when she saw the cabin, her eyes going wide as saucers. Daddy, there's a bedroom on an airplane. I know, baby. And a TV, and it's bigger than our TV at home. Victoria smiled, watching Lily explore the cabin with running commentary on every amazing discovery. She can have the bedroom if she wants. There's a tablet with movies, games, whatever she needs. That's very kind, thank you. It's the least I can do. Victoria gestured toward a seating area near the front of the cabin. Can we talk privately just for a few minutes? Marcus looked at Lily, who was already settled into a leather seat, examining the entertainment system with intense concentration. She'll be fine. They moved to the front of the aircraft out of Lily's earshot. Victoria sat across from Marcus, and he could see her hands trembling slightly as she folded them in her lap. The confidence she wore like a second skin was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. I owe you more than an apology, Victoria said quietly. You already apologized. I apologize for how I treated you. I haven't apologized for why. Marcus waited. Victoria looked out the window at the tarmac, gathering herself. I grew up poor. Did you know that? I didn't. Appalachian, Kentucky. My father worked coal mines when he could get work. My mother cleaned hotel rooms at night. We lived in a trailer with a roof that leaked and heat that only worked half the time. She turned back to Marcus. Everything I have, I built. Every dollar, every connection, every piece of power. I fought for all of it against people who looked at me the way I looked at you this morning. Marcus understood before she said it. So you became what you hated. The words hung between them, sharp and true and undeniable. Yes, Victoria flinched as if he had struck her. I suppose I did. Silence settled between them, heavy but not hostile. Two people who had fought their way up from nothing, who carried scars the world could not see, finding unexpected common ground at 40,000 feet. When you walked into that hangar, Victoria continued, her voice barely above a whisper, I saw everything I'd spent my life running from. The assumption that someone who looks a certain way, dresses a certain way, drives a certain car, can't possibly be competent, can't possibly belong. Her eyes glistened. I spent 30 years proving people like that wrong, and then I became one of them. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand that it wasn't about you. Not really. It was about me, about my fear, my insecurity. Victoria's voice cracked. I'm terrified, Marcus. All the time. Terrified of losing what I've built. Terrified that someone will see through me and realize I'm still that little girl in the trailer and take it all away. The captain's voice came over the intercom announcing they would be departing in 10 minutes. A flight attendant appeared, quietly checking that everything was secure. Marcus leaned back in his seat, studying the woman across from him, seeing past the billion-dollar company and the designer clothes to the frightened child still hiding underneath. You know what I see when I look at you? Marcus asked. What? Someone who's been carrying a weight so long, she's forgotten what it feels like to put it down. Victoria wiped her eyes, quickly, embarrassed by her own emotion. That sounds like something from a fortune cookie. My grandmother used to say it. She was smarter than any CEO I've ever met. Victoria smiled through her tears. Tell me about her. Why? Because I want to know. I want to understand where you come from. What made you into the kind of person who tears up checks and forgives people who don't deserve it? So Marcus told her about Grace Blake, who had raised him after his parents died, about the small house in Baltimore with the garden out back where she grew tomatoes and hope, about working as a seamstress until her hands gave out making wedding dresses with arthritic fingers because people deserve beauty on the most important day of their lives. Victoria listened like she was starving for stories about people who built bridges instead of walls, who chose connection over control, who measured worth in something other than net worth. The plane lifted into the sky, and Marcus watched his old life grow small below them. The hangar where he had torn up $100,000. The parking lot where his dying Civic sat between luxury cars. The whole strange morning shrinking until it disappeared. His phone buzzed, text message, unknown number. I know what happened to that plane, and I know you're not going to like who's responsible. Marcus showed Victoria the screen. Her face went pale. Someone's watching us, she whispered. Someone knows about the sabotage. Marcus looked out the window at New Jersey falling away below them, at the vast continent stretching toward California, at the adventure that had started with a desperate phone call and a broken promise to his daughter. Then I guess we're going to find out who. The aircraft climbed toward cruising altitude, carrying them west toward San Francisco, toward a meeting worth $4.8 billion, toward answers neither of them were ready to hear. And in the cabin behind them, Lily Blake slept, peacefully dreaming of cable cars and sea lions, and the Golden Gate Bridge, unaware that her father had just stepped into a world that would change all their lives forever. The plane descended through California clouds at 3:30 Pacific time, golden hour light still hours away, but the city already visible below them. Lily woke from her nap and pressed her face against the window, breath fogging the glass as the city materialized below them, like a promise made real. Marcus felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Multiple texts, all from Victoria's phone, all time-stamped within the last hour while he had dozed. He opened them, reading messages that made his pulse quicken. The first was an address, downtown San Francisco, a hotel. The second was a name, Janet Frost. The third was a warning, my mother. I haven't spoken to her in 15 years. She says she needs to talk before the meeting, about my father, about the truth. The fourth was a plea. Will you come with me to the hotel lobby? I don't think I can face her alone. Marcus looked up to find Victoria watching him from across the cabin, her face pale in the afternoon light. She had been crying while he slept. He could see the evidence in her reddened eyes and the wadded tissue clutched in her hand. Your mother's here. Victoria nodded, unable to speak, the vulnerability so raw on her face that Marcus felt something shift in his chest. This was not the billionaire who had torn into engineers and thrown money at problems. This was someone terrified of ghosts she thought she had outrun. What does she want? Victoria's voice came out barely above a whisper. To tell me the truth about how my father died. She says I don't know. She says I need to know before I walk into that meeting tomorrow. The plane touched down with barely a bump, testament to the pilot's skill in the aircraft's engineering. Within 20 minutes, they were in a car heading into the city, Lily chattering about the Golden Gate Bridge visible in the distance, while Victoria sat silent and trembling beside Marcus. Ryan's sister Jessica met them at the hotel, a warm woman in her 40s with Ryan's smile and his easy competence. She swept Lily away with promises of room service and movies, leaving Marcus and Victoria standing in the marble lobby like soldiers about to enter battle. Janet Frost sat in a wingback chair near the fireplace, and Marcus saw immediately where Victoria had gotten her intensity. The older woman was 60, elegant in the way people are when they have worked hard to appear, otherwise wearing clothes that whispered quality without shouting wealth. Her hair was silver gray, cut short and practical. Her eyes were the same piercing blue as her daughter's. She stood as they approached, and for a moment, mother and daughter simply stared at each other across 15 years of silence and anger and grief, too deep for words. Victoria? Mother. The formality was painful. Marcus started to step back to give them privacy, but Victoria's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist with desperate strength. This is Marcus Blake. He's helping me. Janet's eyes moved to Marcus, assessing him with the same analytical precision her daughter possessed. Mr. Blake, thank you for coming. They sat in a quiet corner of the lobby, away from other guests, and Janet Frost began to speak. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she folded them in her lap, the only sign of the pain this conversation was costing her. Your father didn't die of natural causes, Victoria. Victoria went very still beside Marcus. The death certificate said heart failure. The death certificate was technically accurate. His heart did fail, but not because of disease. Janet took a breath that seemed to draw all the oxygen from the space between them. He had early-stage dementia. I'd been trying to get him into a better care facility somewhere with proper supervision. But the good places cost $8,000 a month, and we didn't have that kind of money. Marcus watched Victoria's face go white. I called you. I sent you emails. I begged you to help us pay for proper care. Janet's voice remained steady, but tears tracked down her cheeks. You sent a check for $20,000, but you never came. You never called. You said you were too busy. I was building the company. I was trying to... He wandered out of the facility while I was at work. Janet's words cut through Victoria's defense like a blade through paper. They found him 2 blocks away, hit by a car. The police said he'd been asking people if they'd seen his daughter. He thought you were still a little girl. He was looking for you. Victoria made a sound like something breaking inside her chest. He died calling your name, Victoria, and you were in a board meeting. The lobby suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. Marcus wanted to look away from the naked agony on Victoria's face, but he forced himself to bear witness because she needed someone to see this, to know this, to understand what it was, costing her to hear the truth she had been running from for so long. I didn't know. Victoria's voice came out strangled. I didn't know he had dementia. I didn't know he wandered. You thought a check was enough. You thought money could replace presence. Janet leaned forward, her voice softening slightly. I didn't come here to hurt you, baby. I came because I don't want you to make the same mistake with this man and his daughter. If you care about them, really care about them, you need to show up. Money isn't love. Presence is love. She pulled an envelope from her purse and placed it on the table between them. This is the last thing your father wrote the day he died. I thought you should have it. Victoria stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Her hand shook too badly to pick it up. Marcus reached over and opened it for her, unfolding the single page covered in shaky handwriting that wavered across the lines. Victoria read it silently, tears streaming down her face, and Marcus saw her lips move as she absorbed words meant for her alone. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and pressed it against her chest like she could absorb her father's love through skin and bone. He wrote that he was proud of me. Her voice broke. That he missed the little girl who used to help him in the garden. That money can't buy time, and he wished I knew that. Janet stood preparing to leave. I'm staying at the Marriott on 4th if you want to talk more. But I understand if you don't. I just needed you to know the truth before you walked into that meeting tomorrow. Your father would have wanted you to succeed, but he would have wanted you to know what success actually costs. She walked away, leaving Victoria and Marcus sitting in the lobby of a San Francisco hotel surrounded by strangers who had no idea they were witnessing someone's entire world cracking open. Victoria turned to Marcus, mascara running down her face, every wall she had ever built crumbling into dust around her. I killed him. I killed my own father by being too busy to care. Marcus took her hands in his rough mechanic's hands, holding a billionaire's trembling fingers. You didn't kill him. Life killed him. Dementia killed him. A tragic accident killed him. But you didn't. I wasn't there. He needed me and I wasn't there. No, you weren't. And you'll have to live with that. But Victoria, you can choose differently now. You can be there for the people who need you, starting today. She pulled her hands back and wiped her face, smearing makeup across her cheeks like war paint. I have to be at that meeting in 12 hours. I know. I have to close this deal. $4.8 billion, the future of my company. I know. Victoria looked at him with eyes that had seen too much truth in too short a time. How do I walk into that room after this? How do I focus when all I can think about is my father dying alone looking for me? Marcus thought about Afghanistan, about the missions that came right after learning someone back home had died, about the impossible task of compartmentalizing grief when the world demanded performance. You put it in a box, not forever, just for the meeting. You give yourself permission to fall apart later. But right now, you honor your father by being the woman he was proud of, the one who built something from nothing, the one who doesn't give up. Victoria nodded slowly, pulling herself together with visible effort, rebuilding walls that would never be quite as high or quite as strong as they were before. Okay, I can do that. I know you can. They sat in silence for a moment, and then Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression shifted into something Marcus recognized from the hangar. Focus, determination, the armor going back on. The meeting's at 9 tomorrow morning. Sentinel AI Systems headquarters, downtown. I should get some sleep. Marcus stood. Then let's get you to your hotel. Lily and I will be fine. Jessica seems great. Victoria stood as well, steadier, now the CEO emerging from the grieving daughter like a butterfly from a chrysalis. Marcus, will you come to the meeting with me, you and Lily? I know it's a lot to ask, but I think I need you there to remind me what actually matters. Before he could answer, his phone rang. The screen showed a number he had not seen in 3 years, a number he had deleted and tried to forget, but still recognized instantly. Caroline, his ex-wife, Lily's mother, the woman who had walked out without explanation and never looked back. Until now, Marcus answered, his heart suddenly pounding. What do you want? Caroline's voice came through the speaker and it sounded wrong, thin, frightened. Marcus, I need to talk to you in person. It's not about custody or anything like that. Her voice broke. I saw you on the news with her, with the billionaire, and I realized I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you 3 years ago. The lobby spun around him. Victoria was watching with concern, but all Marcus could hear was Caroline's voice saying words that did not make sense, could not be true. What are you talking about? I can't explain over the phone. Please, Marcus. I'm in Los Angeles. I can drive up tomorrow. Can we meet? Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, a play, another abandonment disguised as connection. But something in her voice, something raw and real, made him pause. Tomorrow afternoon, there's a coffee shop on Market Street. I'll text you the address. Thank you. Carolina's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, Marcus. He hung up before she could say more. His hands were shaking. Victoria touched his arm gently. Are you okay? My ex-wife, the one who left 3 years ago, she wants to meet tomorrow. Says she needs to tell me something. Victoria's eyes widened. Do you believe her? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Marcus looked at his phone like it had betrayed him. But I have to find out for Lily's sake. They stood together in the lobby, two people carrying more weight than anyone should have to bear alone, and for a moment the space between them felt less like distance and more like connection. We'll get through this, Victoria said quietly. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll get through it together. Marcus wanted to believe her, but tomorrow was coming fast, and it carried too many unknowns for comfort. The Sentinel, AI Systems building, rose 40 stories above downtown San Francisco, all glass and steel, and the particular arrogance of new money convinced it was smarter than old money. Victoria stood on the sidewalk at 8:45, staring up at the tower like a gladiator studying the arena where she might die. Marcus stood beside her, holding his hand. They had dressed carefully that morning, understanding instinctively that appearance mattered in this world, even if competence mattered more. Marcus wore the only suit he owned, a charcoal gray his grandmother had bought him for job interviews a decade ago. Lily wore a purple dress she had picked out herself, declaring it looked professional but not boring. Victoria wore armor, a black suit so perfectly tailored it might have been painted on shoes that added 3 inches to her height, hair pulled back with ruthless precision. But her hands shook as she clutched her briefcase, and Marcus saw the frightened girl from Kentucky underneath the CEO costume. His phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number, the same one from the plane. The sabotage was corporate espionage. Gerald Morton was paid $50,000 by Hyperion Industries to delay your flight. He removed the washer gaskets, hoping you'd miss the Sentinel meeting. When Blake fixed it too fast, Morton panicked and leaked your relationship to the media as Plan B. Marcus showed Victoria the screen. Her face went hard. Hyperion wanted this deal for themselves. They're trying to sabotage me from every angle. Who sent this text? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. She took a breath. But first I have a meeting to win. They rode the elevator to the 40th floor in silence. Lily was unusually quiet, sensing the gravity of the situation without fully understanding it. When the doors opened, they were greeted by a receptionist who looked at Marcus and Lily with barely concealed confusion. Ms. Frost, we weren't expecting guests. Victoria's voice was ice. Mr. Blake and his daughter are with me. Is that a problem? No, ma'am, of course not. Conference room A. Mr. Thornton is waiting. They walked down a corridor lined with modern art worth more than Marcus's house, and he felt Lily's hand tighten in his. He squeezed back, reassurance flowing between father and daughter without words. The conference room was vast with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 6 people sat around a table that could seat 20. James Thornton, CEO of Sentinel. I was in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of tan that came from sailing expensive boats. Beside him sat Margaret Ross, the CFO, a sharp-faced woman in her 40s, who looked at Victoria like a cat studying a particularly interesting mouse. Thornton stood extending his hand. Miss Frost, glad you could make it. We heard about the aircraft troubles yesterday. Victoria shook his hand firmly. The aircraft is fine. Mechanical issue now resolved. And these are, Thornton gestured at Marcus and Lily, associates. Victoria offered no further explanation, and her tone suggested none would be forthcoming. They settled into chairs, Lily sitting quietly beside Marcus with the tablet Jessica had lent her headphones in place, watching a movie silently while the adults discussed billions of dollars like they were discussing the weather. Thornton opened with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Ms. Frost, we've reviewed your proposal for acquiring Sentinel. While we appreciate the offer, we have some concerns about the valuation. Here it comes, Marcus thought, the polite knife. Your AI patents are impressive, Thornton continued, but the technology landscape is evolving rapidly. We're not convinced that intellectual property developed 5 years ago will hold value in 5 more years. The pace of change is simply too fast. Victoria started to respond, and Marcus saw the old pattern emerging. The defensive posture, the preparation to attack, the instinct to dominate and destroy. Then her phone buzzed. Text from Marcus sent under the table. What would curious Victoria do, not controlling Victoria? Curious. She glanced at him and something shifted in her eyes. She took a breath and leaned forward, but not to attack. To listen. Tell me more about your concerns. What specifically worries you about the technology timeline? Thornton seemed surprised by the question. He had clearly prepared for a fight, not a conversation. While the field is moving toward quantum processing and neural interfaces, your patents focus on traditional machine learning architectures, which are the foundation for quantum systems. Victoria's voice was calm, interested rather than defensive. You can't build the new technology without understanding the old. But I hear what you're saying. You're worried about investing in yesterday's innovation. Margaret Ross leaned in, and Marcus saw her reassessing Victoria in real time. Exactly. We need to ensure any acquisition includes a path forward, not just a catalog of past achievements. What if we structured this as a partnership rather than a pure acquisition? Victoria pulled out her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Revenue sharing based on joint R&D development. You get our foundational patents plus our research team. We get stake in whatever you build on top of it. The risk is shared, but so is the reward. The room went quiet. Thornton and Ross exchanged glances, having a silent conversation that Marcus could not interpret, but could sense was significant. That's an interesting approach, Thornton said slowly. We'd need to see specific terms, but the concept has merit. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of negotiations, projections, and legal language that Marcus barely understood. But he watched Victoria operate in a mode he had not seen before. She listened more than she spoke. She asked questions instead of making demands. She acknowledged their concerns instead of dismissing them. And slowly, incrementally, the energy in the room shifted from adversarial to collaborative. At 12:30, they took a break. Lily was getting restless, and Marcus took her to a small break room where she could stretch her legs and eat the snacks Jessica had packed. "Is the meeting going okay, Daddy?" "I think so, baby. Victoria's doing great. She seems nicer than yesterday." Marcus smiled. "She's learning, just like we all are." When they returned, Thornton was smiling. Actually smiling, not the corporate mask, but something genuine. "Mr. Frost, I have to say, this has been the most productive negotiation I've had in 30 years. You're not like the stories say." Victoria returned the smile, and Marcus saw something soft in her expression. "I'm trying to be better than the stories." By 1 o'clock, they had outlined a deal. $4.8 billion with performance milestones, joint development agreements, and a partnership structure that gave both sides skin in the game. It would take weeks to finalize the legal details, but the framework was solid, and everyone at the table knew it. Thornton shook Victoria's hand with genuine warmth. "This is going to be good for both companies. I'm looking forward to working with you." "Same here, James. Thank you for taking the time to really talk this through." They left the building, and Victoria did not speak until they reached the sidewalk. Then she stopped, turned to Marcus, and her mask finally cracked. "I did it. We actually did it." "You did it. I just sent a text." "No." She shook her head firmly. "You reminded me who I wanted to be. That's everything." Her phone buzzed. Breaking news alert. Marcus saw her face go pale as she read the screen. "What is it?" She showed him. The headline made his stomach drop. "Frost Dynamics, CEO in secret romance with aircraft mechanic. Gold digger or Cinderella story." Below the headline were photos. Marcus and Victoria at Teterboro, holding hands outside the San Francisco hotel. Lily between them, clearly identifiable as Marcus's daughter. The article included an interview with Caroline Blake. Marcus snatched the phone, reading words that made his blood boil. Caroline talking about their marriage, about irreconcilable differences, about concern for Lily's well-being in this media circus. And at the end, the kicker that explained everything. Ms. Blake's attorney confirmed she is pursuing emergency custody of her daughter, citing concerns about the child's exposure to her father's new relationship with billionaire Victoria Frost. Marcus felt like the ground had opened beneath him. 3 years. 3 years of silence, and now Caroline was back with lawyers and publicity in a custody fight he could not afford. His phone rang. "Caroline," he answered on speaker, too angry to care who heard. "What the hell is this?" Caroline's voice was thick with tears. "I didn't want it to go public." The lawyer said, "You're suing me for custody. After 3 years of nothing, no calls, no visits, no birthday cards, and now you want Lily back because I'm dating someone." "Marcus, please. It's not about the money. It's not about her. You what? You saw me on the news and decided now was a good time to remember you have a daughter. My lawyer will be in touch." Caroline's voice shifted, becoming harder. "Lily deserves stability, Marcus, not a circus." She hung up. Marcus stood on the sidewalk in San Francisco, his daughter looking up at him with frightened eyes, and felt everything he had built over 3 years crumbling around him. "Daddy, what's happening?" He knelt to her level, forcing his voice steady. "Nothing for you to worry about, baby. Just grown-up stuff." But Lily was too smart to believe that, and the fear in her eyes nearly broke him. Victoria's voice cut through his panic. "We'll fight this. I'll get you the best lawyers. No." Marcus stood and his voice was steel. "This is exactly what she said. You're making it worse. Your money, your attention, your world. It's destroying mine." Victoria flinched like he had slapped her. "Marcus, I need to go home, now. I need to deal with this before it gets worse." They flew back to Newark in silence, the joy of the successful meeting poisoned by the nightmare waiting on the other end. Marcus spent the flight staring out the window, mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. Caroline had money now, clearly. She had lawyers. She had a narrative about instability and media circuses that would sound convincing to a judge who did not know the truth. And he had 632 notes in Lily's lunchbox and hope that was rapidly fading. They landed at Teterboro just after midnight East Coast time. Marcus carried sleeping Lily to his car, buckled her into the back seat, and turned to find Victoria standing beside the Civic, looking small and lost in the darkness. "I'm sorry." Her voice was barely audible. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I didn't mean to." "I know, but it doesn't change what's happening." He opened the driver's door. "I have to protect my daughter. That's the only thing that matters." What can I do? Marcus looked at her, this brilliant broken woman who had stumbled into his life and turned it upside down in less than 48 hours. Give me space. Let me handle this without your money or your lawyers or your world making it worse. He drove away, watching Victoria shrink in his rearview mirror and felt something tear in his chest that he did not have time to examine. At home, he found an envelope taped to his front door. Legal letterhead, Caroline's attorney, emergency custody hearing scheduled in 10 days. Allegations of unstable home environment, inappropriate exposure to media attention. Father's judgment compromised by relationship with wealthy woman. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, the envelope in front of him like a sphinx, and for the first time in 3 years, he allowed himself to cry. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal consultations Marcus could not afford and panic he could not suppress. He hired a public defender who looked at the evidence and shook his head with practiced sympathy. You're fighting uphill, Mr. Blake. Mrs. Blake has steady employment now, an apartment, she's engaged to a doctor. The court favors rehabilitation. She's presenting herself as someone who's gotten her life together and wants to be involved in her daughter's life again. Marcus gripped the armrest of the cheap chair in the lawyer's cheaper office. She abandoned Lily for 3 years. No contact, no support, nothing. 3 years ago, people change. Courts recognize that. The lawyer shuffled papers without looking at Marcus. And the media attention doesn't help. The judge will see photos of your daughter with a billionaire CEO and wonder about stability. So Caroline wins because she timed this perfectly. I'm not saying you'll lose. I'm saying it's not as clear-cut as you think. Marcus walked out of that office and threw up in the parking lot. Victoria texted him daily. He did not respond. She sent gifts for Lily books and art supplies that arrived with cards saying she missed them. Marcus put them in a closet unopened. She offered to pay for better lawyers to testify on his character to help in any way she could. He declined everything because the lawyer was right. Victoria's presence made everything worse. Ryan came by one night and found Marcus sitting in the dark staring at the wall. Brother, you can't do this alone. Watch me. She's trying to help. Victoria's going crazy. She's called me 5 times asking how you are. She should focus on her company. Marcus's voice was flat. I need to focus on my daughter. What if you're wrong? Ryan's question hung in the air like smoke. What if pushing her away is the mistake? Marcus looked at his friend with eyes gone hollow. Then I lose everything, but at least I'll lose it fighting. The second week, something changed. Sarah Mitchell, the young technician from Teterboro, emailed Marcus. The subject line said, "You need to see this." The email contained security footage from 2 years earlier. Manhattan, Upper East Side. A car accident outside a charity gala. Chaos, fire. 3 people trapped inside the vehicle. And Marcus Blake wearing his mechanic's uniform running toward the flames while everyone else ran away. Pulling victims from the wreck. Saving 3 lives. Disappearing before the EMTs could get his name. Sarah's note explained that she had been investigating Gerald Morton's activities and found the footage while reviewing Frost Dynamics security archives from various locations. Morton had been at that gala. So had Victoria Frost. The footage was time-stamped December 14th, 2 years ago. Marcus remembered that night. He had been delivering repaired parts to a client in Manhattan, had seen the accident, had acted on instinct, and his grandmother's voice saying, never wait for permission to do good. What he had not known was that Victoria Frost had been there, had witnessed it, had watched him risk his life to save strangers. His phone rang. Victoria, he answered for the first time in 3 weeks. You saw the footage? Her voice was thick with emotion. Sarah sent it to me. Marcus, that was you. The man I saw that night. The one who ran toward fire. I've thought about him for 2 years. I never knew his name. Never knew it was you. Marcus did not speak. When you walked into that hangar, something in me recognized you. I didn't know why. I thought I was going crazy, but it was you. It was always you. Victoria, I didn't fall in love with you in 2 days, Marcus. I fell in love with you 2 years ago when I saw what kind of man you are. I just didn't know your name yet. The words hit him like a physical force. Love. She had said love, and something in his chest that had been frozen for 3 weeks cracked open. I'm scared. The admission cost him everything. I'm scared of losing Lily. I'm scared that being with you is what makes me lose her. And I'm scared that if I choose you, I'm the kind of father Caroline says I am. Then choose Lily. Victoria's voice was steady. Every time. I'll understand, because that's what love actually looks like. Choosing what matters most, even when it's hard. Marcus closed his eyes. Can you come over? I need to see you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 18. Marcus opened the door and she was there smaller than he remembered. No armor or expensive clothes, just Victoria in jeans and a sweater looking at him like he was water and she had been dying of thirst. They stood in his doorway and the space between them felt like the Grand Canyon and a heartbeat all at once. I missed you. Her voice broke. God, Marcus, I missed you so much. I missed you too. He pulled her inside into his arms and felt her collapse against him like she had been holding herself together through pure will and finally found permission to fall apart. They sat on his couch and Victoria told him everything she had been doing. The investigation into Morton that led to his arrest, the charges against Hyperion Industries for corporate espionage, the board meeting where Patricia Westbrook had tried to vote her out and failed by a single vote. I almost lost the company. She wiped her eyes. And you know what? I didn't care. All I could think about was losing you and Lily. Marcus took her hand. We're not lost. We're right here. But Caroline called me yesterday. Marcus cut her off. She wants to meet. Says it's not about the custody fight. She says she needs to tell me something. Victoria's eyes widen. Do you believe her? I don't know, but I'm meeting her tomorrow, and I think I need to hear whatever she has to say. They sat in silence, holding hands on Marcus's worn couch, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he felt like he could breathe. No matter what happens, Victoria said quietly, I'm here, not with money or lawyers or anything you don't want. Just here as whatever you need me to be. Marcus kissed her then, soft and careful, and full of everything he could not say with words. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. I love you, he whispered. I'm terrified and confused, and I have no idea how this works, but I love you. I love you too. She pressed her forehead against his. We'll figure it out. Together. Upstairs, Lily called out in her sleep, and Marcus went to check on her, finding his daughter tangled in blankets, but peaceful. He straightened the covers, kissed her forehead, and whispered the words he wrote in her notes every day. You are braver than you believe. When he came back downstairs, Victoria was looking at the photos on his refrigerator. Lily's school pictures, his grandmother Grace, the photo of Caroline that he had kept because Lily needed to remember her mother's face. Thank you for keeping that up, Victoria said, pointing at Caroline. For Lily's sake, that's what a good father does. I just want her to know where she came from. She's lucky to have you. They spent the rest of the night talking about everything and nothing about the future that terrified them and the present that felt impossibly fragile. And when Victoria finally left at 2 in the morning, Marcus stood in his doorway and watched her drive away, feeling like the world had shifted on its axis, and maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. The next morning, he met Caroline at a coffee shop on Market Street in Newark. She looked different than he remembered. Thinner, yes, but also softer somehow. The hardness that had defined her before she left was gone, replaced by something that looked like regret. They sat across from each other, in a corner booth, two people who had once promised forever and delivered 3 years instead. Thank you for coming. Carolyn's hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. I know you have every reason to hate me. I don't hate you, I'm just confused. 3 years of silence, and now custody fights and media interviews. What do you want, Caroline? She looked down at her coffee, gathering courage. I didn't come back because of Victoria or the money or the media attention. I came back because I was sick. Am sick. Severe depression. I've been in treatment for 6 months. Marcus felt his anger deflate slightly. You could have told me that. You didn't need lawyers. The lawyer was my fiancé's idea. He thought it would help my case. But I never wanted to take Lily from you, Marcus. Her voice broke. I wanted her to know I didn't leave because of her. I left because I was broken, and I was too ashamed to admit it. The coffee shop hummed around them, oblivious strangers living normal lives, while Marcus and Caroline tried to make sense of 3 years of silence and pain. Why now? Why not a year ago, 2 years ago? Caroline's tears spilled over. Because I saw you happy. I saw you with her with Victoria, and I realized I robbed Lily of a mother because I was too proud to admit I needed help. I don't want her back, Marcus. I want her to know I'm sorry. Something in Marcus's chest loosened. She deserves to hear that. From you, not from lawyers or news articles. From you. Will you let me tell her just once, and then I'll drop the custody fight? I'll sign whatever you want. I just need her to know I loved her even when I couldn't stay. Marcus looked at his ex-wife, seeing past the abandonment to the frightened woman underneath. Tomorrow, the park near our house. 2 o'clock. You can tell her, but Caroline, if you run again, if you break her heart again, you're done. You don't get another chance. I understand. She wiped her eyes. Thank you, Marcus, for being better than I deserved. He left the coffee shop feeling lighter and heavier all at once. The custody fight was ending, but Lily would have to face her mother's abandonment in a way she had been protected from until now. That night, he told Lily about the meeting. His daughter listened with solemn attention, and when he finished, she asked one question. Will you be there with me? Every second. And can Victoria come too? I'm scared, Daddy. I think I need both of you. Marcus felt something warm bloom in his chest. Of course she can come, if you want her there. Lily nodded, and Marcus saw his daughter taking the first tentative steps toward letting someone new into her heart. He called Victoria, and she answered on the first ring. We need you tomorrow, both of us. Can you come? Always. No hesitation, no questions, just certainty that felt like bedrock beneath shifting sand. Thank you. Marcus, that's what families do. They show up. The word hung between them. Family. Not yet, maybe, but possibly. Someday. If they were brave enough to build the bridge, the park appeared exactly as it always had, indifferent to the drama about to unfold beneath its autumn trees. Marcus arrived early with Lily and Victoria choosing a bench near the playground, where his daughter had spent countless Saturday afternoons learning to pump her legs on the swings and conquer her fear of the tall slide. Lily sat between them, hands clasped in her lap with unnatural stillness. She wore the purple dress, again the professional one, because she had announced that morning that meeting her mother for the first time in memory required looking grown up. Marcus's heart had nearly shattered at the declaration. Victoria held his hand on the opposite side, her thumb tracing small circles against his palm. Silent support, present without overwhelming. Caroline appeared at 2 o'clock, exactly walking across the grass like a prisoner approaching execution. She had dressed carefully too, Marcus noticed. Simple clothes that suggested she understood this moment belonged to Lily, not to her own need for redemption. She stopped 10 feet away, as if an invisible barrier prevented her from coming closer without permission. Lily looked up at Marcus, seeking guidance. He nodded toward Caroline, giving his daughter the choice that had been stolen from her 3 years ago. You can talk to her, baby, or not, whatever you need. Lily stood slowly, crossed half the distance, and stopped. Caroline knelt to meet her daughter's eyes, and Marcus saw the resemblance that time had blurred. The same nose, the same tilt of the head when considering difficult questions. Hi, Lily. You're my mom. Not a question, a statement of fact requiring confirmation. I am. I know you don't remember me. You were so little when I left. Lily's voice came out smaller than Marcus had heard it in months. Why did you leave? Caroline's tears started immediately, but to her credit, she did not look away. Because I was sick in a way that made me think terrible things. I thought you would be better without me. I was wrong, sweetheart. So wrong. But I was too scared to stay and too ashamed to come back. Daddy said you had depression. I did. I do. It's something I'll have to work on my whole life. Caroline wiped her face. But being sick doesn't excuse what I did. I left you. I hurt you. And I'm sorrier than I know how to say. Lily stood very still, processing information that no 8-year-old should have to absorb. Victoria's hand tightened in Marcus's, both of them watching this child navigate emotional territory that destroyed adults. Did you leave because I wasn't good enough? The question landed like a bomb. Carolyn made a sound halfway between a sob and a gasp, reaching toward Lily, but stopping herself from touching without permission. No, oh Lily, no. You were perfect. You are perfect. I left because I wasn't strong enough. That's my failure, not yours, never yours. Lily considered this with serious concentration. Then she did something that made Marcus's throat close completely. She stepped forward and hugged her mother. Not a long embrace, maybe 3 seconds. But Caroline clung to those seconds like a drowning person clutches driftwood, her whole body shaking with the weight of 3 years' worth of grief finally finding release. When Lily stepped back, her face was dry, but her voice was steady. I forgive you, but I don't think I can love you right now. Maybe someday. Is that okay? Caroline nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming unchecked down her face. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That's more than I deserve. She pulled a small box from her bag and held it out. These are for you, pictures from when you were a baby, your grandmother's necklace, things that belong to you, not me, your history, so you don't forget where you came from. Lily took the box carefully, holding it like something precious and fragile. Caroline stood, and her eyes found Marcus. I signed the papers this morning. My lawyer has them. No custody fight, no interference. Lily's yours the way she always should have been. I'm moving to Oregon next week. My brother's there. I need family and I need to stop running. Marcus felt Victoria's hand squeeze his so hard it almost hurt. Will you be okay? His question surprised him, but something in him knew it was the right thing to ask. I think so. Therapy helps. Having a reason to get better helps. Carolyn looked at Lily one more time. Goodbye, sweet girl. I hope you have the most beautiful life. She walked away across the grass, and Lily watched her go with eyes too wise for 8 years old. When Caroline disappeared around the corner, Lily turned to Marcus and Victoria. Can we go home now? I think I'm done being brave for today. Victoria pulled Lily into her arms, and Marcus wrapped himself around both of them. They stood like that in the autumn sunshine, three people learning what family could mean when you chose it instead of inheriting it. That night, after Lily fell asleep clutching her grandmother's necklace, Marcus and Victoria sat on his porch watching Newark settle into darkness. The neighborhood was quiet, working-class houses with lit windows, showing lives being lived without drama or billion-dollar deals. She's going to be okay. Victoria rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. Your daughter is going to be okay. Our daughter. The words slipped out before Marcus could stop them, but he did not take them back. Victoria went very still. What? I said our daughter, if you want, eventually, when we figure out what this is and where it's going. Marcus was nervous now, the words tumbling out. I'm not asking you to marry me or move in or anything specific. Victoria kissed him soft and slow and full of promises neither of them was ready to speak out loud. I would be honored. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Someday, when she's ready, when we're all ready. They sat together as stars appeared above New Jersey, and Marcus thought about his grandmother Grace, about the bridges she had taught him to build, about the courage it took to let people in when the world kept teaching you to lock the doors. 3 months passed in a rhythm that felt like healing. Victoria came for dinner on Thursdays, then Thursdays and Sundays, then most nights of the week. Lily started calling her Miss V, which evolved into Mom V, which made both adults cry the first time they heard it. Marcus met Victoria's board of directors at a holiday party and shook hands with people who controlled billions while wearing his best suit and feeling completely out of place until Victoria squeezed his hand and whispered, "You're worth more than all of them combined." Victoria started therapy. Real therapy, not the corporate wellness coaching she had tried before. She came to Marcus's house after sessions, sometimes quiet and raw, and he would hold her while she processed decades of pain she had been running from. Sarah Mitchell sent updates about the Morton investigation. Gerald Morton had been sentenced to 2 years for corporate espionage. Hyperion Industries paid a $15 million settlement. The tech press called it the scandal of the year. Marcus didn't care about any of that. He cared that his daughter was happy. He cared that Victoria was learning to be human instead of perfect. He cared that he had somehow stumbled into a life that felt like grace instead of survival. The proposal happened on a Thursday evening in early spring. Marcus had been planning for 2 weeks ever since the day Lily had looked up from her homework and announced that Victoria needed to be part of their family officially, because she already was anyway, and adults were slow about understanding obvious things. He had taken his daughter to 3 jewelry stores before they found the ring. Not the biggest, not the flashiest, simple and elegant, a single diamond that caught light without demanding attention. That's the one. Lily had been certain. It's pretty but not showing off, like Mom V. They had strung lights on the porch together, Marcus on the ladder, while Lily directed from below with the precision of an architect supervising construction. They had printed photos and arranged them on a small table. Victoria and Marcus at the Golden Gate Bridge, Lily asleep on the plane, Grace Blake's wedding picture from 1962. Victoria arrived at 6:30 for their regular Thursday dinner, and Marcus saw her notice the lights immediately. Her eyes went to the photographs, then to him, and understanding dawned with the force of revelation. Marcus Blake, what are you doing? Lily giggled from her hiding spot behind the door, unable to contain her excitement. Marcus knelt on the porch where they had first said, "I love you," his heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. I'm about to ask you the scariest question of my life. Victoria's hand went to her mouth, tears already starting. 6 months ago, you walked into my world like a storm. You challenged everything I thought I knew about success, about worth, about the kind of man I wanted to be. His voice shook, but he pushed through. You saw me when I was invisible. You valued me when I was dismissed. You loved my daughter like she was yours before I even asked you to. Lily ran out from her hiding spot, unable to wait any longer. Tell her the part about the bridges, Daddy. Marcus smiled through his own tears. My grandmother used to say, there are 2 kinds of people, wall builders and bridge builders. You were a wall builder who learned to build bridges, and the strongest bridge you built was the one that brought you to us. He pulled the ring from his pocket. Victoria Frost, will you marry me? Victoria was crying too hard to speak at first. She nodded, then found her voice. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Lily launched herself at Victoria and they fell together in a tangle of arms and tears and laughter. Marcus joined them and they sat on the porch wrapped around each other while the neighborhood went about its evening business, oblivious to the miracle happening on this particular front porch. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria looked at Lily with an expression of wonder and fear in equal measure. Can I ask you something, sweetheart? Sure. Would it be okay if someday when you're ready, you called me mom, not instead of your other mom, in addition to, because I want to be your mom if you'll have me? Lily's tears started fresh. I've been wanting to ask you the same thing, I just didn't know if it was okay. They dissolved into crying again, and Marcus sat back watching two people he loved more than breathing learn to love each other. The wedding happened on a Saturday in early summer, 9 months after Marcus had walked into a hangar with hope and no idea his life was about to change forever. They kept it small. 35 guests in Marcus's backyard, which had been transformed through Lily's determination and Victoria's quiet funding into something halfway between garden party and fairy tale. White chairs arranged in rows. An arch covered in flowers that Lily had helped choose because purple was her favorite, and white was traditional, and together they were perfect. Ryan Torres stood as best man wearing his dress uniform from the Air Force and grinning like he had won the lottery. Sarah Mitchell flew in from Boston, where she now ran maintenance operations for a major airline. She had sent Marcus a card thanking him for teaching her that instinct and education were different languages saying the same thing. Mrs. Patterson sat in the front row crying happy tears into a handkerchief, having announced that she had watched this family heal themselves and each other. And if that was not a miracle worth crying about, then nothing was. Janet Frost sat 3 rows back, her relationship with Victoria still tentative but growing. They spoke once a week now, mother and daughter learning to build bridges across 15 years of silence. Janet had brought apple pie, declaring that no wedding was complete without pie, and Victoria had hugged her so hard they both cried. Caroline sent a card from Oregon, simple, clean. Wishing you all the happiness I couldn't give you. Thank you for letting Lily know I loved her, even when I couldn't stay. Be well. See, Lily was flower girl, taking the job with the same seriousness she brought to everything important. She wore a purple dress that matched the flowers and walked down the aisle, scattering petals with mathematical precision, counting steps under her breath to ensure even distribution. Victoria wore simple elegance, a white dress that whispered rather than shouted her only jewelry, a gold necklace that had belonged to her mother. Janet had given it to her the night before, saying it was time to pass down something worth keeping. Marcus wore his father's watch and his grandmother's smile standing at the front of the garden. His daughter had helped create, watching the woman he loved walk toward him through late afternoon sunshine. The minister was a friend of Mrs. Patterson's, someone who understood that family came in forms the world did not always recognize, but God blessed anyway. We are gathered here today to witness and celebrate the union of Victoria and Marcus, two people who found each other against considerable odds and chose love when fear would have been easier. The vows they had written made half the guests cry and the other half smile through tears. Marcus went first, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. I promise to always see you even when you build walls. I promise to always choose you even when it's hard. I promise to write notes to our children, reminding them they're braver than they believe. Our children. The words landed softly but powerfully, and Victoria's tears spilled over. I promise to always listen even when I think I have all the answers. I promise to always show up even when I'm scared. I promise to choose connection over control every single day. The minister smiled. If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now, or forever hold your peace. Lily stood up from her seat. The entire gathering froze. Marcus felt his heart stop. Victoria went pale. I have something to say. Marcus found his voice. Sweetheart, that's not how. But I need to. Lily's voice was loud and clear and completely serious. Victoria, do you promise to keep making Daddy smile and to always have chocolate chip pancakes on Saturdays and to never ever leave us? Victoria was crying again, laughing through tears, nodding so hard, her carefully arranged hair started falling loose. I promise, all of it, forever. Okay then. Lily sat down with the satisfaction of someone who had completed an important task. You can marry her now. The entire gathering dissolved into laughter and tears, the solemnity broken in the most perfect way possible. They exchanged rings. They kissed. They turned to face their gathered friends and family as husband and wife, and the applause that erupted was loud enough to make the neighbors peer over fences to see what the celebration was about. The reception was casual food on tables under a tent, music from a speaker system that Ryan had helped set up. No speeches because Victoria had declared that she had spent enough of her life performing, and this day was for living instead of presenting. But halfway through the first dance, Lily cut in with all the confidence of someone who knew she belonged in this moment. My turn. Marcus swept his daughter into his arms, dancing with her, while Victoria watched from the edge of the makeshift dance floor, crying the happiest tears of her life. Then Victoria joined them, and all three danced together while someone's uncle took pictures with a phone, and Mrs. Patterson cried into her fourth handkerchief, and Ryan Torres grinned at his friend, like he had known all along this was where they were headed. As the sun set over Newark, casting gold across the backyard wedding that no one who attended would ever forget, Marcus Blake held his wife and daughter close and thought about his grandmother Grace, about the lessons she had taught him, about the courage it took to let people in when the world kept teaching you to lock the doors. Two kinds of people in this world, wall builders and bridge builders. Marcus Blake had chosen his side, and he had helped Victoria Frost choose hers. Together, they were building something that would last. Not because it was easy, not because it made sense on paper, but because they showed up for each other every single day in all the small moments that added up to a life worth living. The porch light would burn late into many nights ahead, a beacon for anyone who needed reminding that hope existed, that change was possible, that the distance between different worlds could be crossed by people brave enough to build the bridge. In the morning, Marcus would wake early and make lunches and write notes and live another day of the ordinary miracle his life had become. He would fix broken things, help people who needed helping, teach his daughter that competence and kindness were not opposites, but partners. And when the next person called with a problem that seemed impossible, Marcus Blake would answer. Not because he had to, but because that was who he was, who he would always be. The man who tore up checks and fixed impossible problems. The man who built bridges when the world said to build walls. The man who proved every single day that some things were worth more than money. Things like respect, like dignity, like love freely given and freely received, like family built from choice instead of obligation, like showing up even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The toolbox sat by the garage door ready for tomorrow, held together with hope and honest work. Never pretty, never impressive to people who measured worth in credentials instead of character, but reliable, always reliable, just like the man who carried it.